Welcome to the Writing Gym Podcast. We're here to pump up your writing. And now your host, Andy Brixey, personal trainer at the Writing Gym.
Hi, I'm Andy, personal trainer at the Writing Gym. Welcome to Squat Lunges with Jill Schiffelbein. I'm excited to introduce you to this week's guest, but first, a word from our sponsor, the Writing Gym. Are you tired of feeling like your writing isn't good enough? You know you could write freely and achieve your publishing dreams. You're tired of rejection and lying awake till 2 a.m. wondering how you could have fixed your manuscript. Wallowing in self-doubt is not getting you closer to your writing goals. You need real standards, real support, and real change. Are you ready to transform your writing and take it from the slush pile to publishable? We are currently accepting select writers in the Writing Gym. Visit www.writing-gym.com to apply today. And now I'd like to introduce you to our resident writing coach, the gal who helps you pump your writing into shape in the Writing Gym. Welcome back to the Writing Gym Podcast, Annalisa Parent.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here with you again.
Listen, everyone, I don't mean to be a snitch, but even if Annalisa is a fantastic writing coach, she has a crazy idea of what fun is. One of her bigger adventures was climbing a volcano in Chile and then getting to slide down the whole thing on her bottom. I cannot imagine how scary and amazing that was, and I'm sure there's a quick little story behind it, right?
Oh, sure. I tell you that the granules of snow at the top of a Chilean volcano are like pebbles. It's a very strange experience to slide down little pebbles.
Ooh. All right, everyone, check it out. And if you're listening to the podcast, be sure and check out everything on the show notes. And we are welcoming back our lovely guest, Jill. Jill has just published her wonderful new book, Dynamic Communication: Strategies to Grow, Lead, and Manage Your Business, with Entrepreneur Press. In her previous episode, we learned all about Jill's writing process and how she outlined her entire book using Post-its. She's here today to talk about how to launch and market your book. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jill.
Thank you, ladies, for having me back. We had such a fun conversation the first time. You know, it's good. And I brought a cocktail for this one, so it's going to be even more enjoyable.
So, Jill, first off, what is, for those of us who don't have a published book, what has the marketing process been like for you? I follow you avidly on Facebook, and you've been doing these talks and all these exciting new things. What has it been like? What have you been doing?
Well, one of the big strategies when I started out doing this book was that I was going to include other people. And I talked about this some in the first interview, how I interviewed 27 other people to include in the book. And as a thank you to them, and then of course also as a major marketing push, I actually published excerpts from each of those 27 videos on my YouTube channel, which is also syndicated by Entrepreneur's YouTube channel. They have a video network that syndicates my content. So by doing that, there were 27 new videos and they're still not all dripped out yet. I think we're chapter 21 just got released of 27. So still 6 more to go. So it's before and after. It's a marathon, not a sprint, so to speak. And we have those. So along with those 27 excerpts will be 27 accompanying articles that mention the video on entrepreneur.com. So a lot of writing that goes along with each of those videos. I mean, you write a book and then you still have to keep writing. What the heck? And and then there are a dozen book excerpt articles that with my editorial team, we decided we wanted these different excerpts to be made into articles that were featured on the main page of entrepreneur.com. So that's the writing marketing push. In terms of digital and social push, one of the things I did, and you guys, we kind of talked the first time in the middle of all of this, was I am probably to a fault transparent about everything that I go through, comedically so in some cases. And I just kept that up. So throughout my social networks, and every time I would appear on, whether it be a podcast, a show like this, a Facebook live stream from my own page or someone else's, it was just me being me. And the people who like my style are going to want to read the book as long as they have some vague interest in the topic. And I think that's true for all of us. We read what we're interested in, but we also read things from people we like and identify with in some way. And whether it's, oh, I like that part about her and I'm like that, or, oh, I like her and, you know, I want to be like her, which is still weird for me to think that there may be someone that deranged out there. Just kidding. You're not deranged, but, you know, like, you want to be like me? I don't know. You might want to, you know, maybe some facets of my personality are cool. Like, take those. Yeah, go with those. But it's been fun. And I'm trying to think. The other thing, I did a massive Thunderclap campaign. So Thunderreach is kind of like a crowdsourcing social media pow in your face type tool. And I achieved, the stats were about 2.3 million in impression reach through the Thunderclap campaign, which, to translate that, what that actually comes in terms of clicks, it means from those 2.3 million impressions, and of course there may have been some overlap between people, 1,900 actual clicks resulted from that. So I want to be awesome about that, because I saw Annalise's face when I said 2.3 million. I'm like, yeah, damn, 2.3 million. Let's be honest, that's a sexy number, right? Like, super sexy number. And in full honesty, it's completely an ego number. That's all it is. What actually matters when you look at it is that from that campaign, I got 1,900 clicks directly on the book purchasing site. So I'm happy with the 1,900. The 2.3 million sounds way sexier, and that's what would sell to somebody, but that's not the reality. The reality is it took that many impressions to get 1,900 clicks. So you can do the math in your own world for your book.
Right. I love that. And so, Jill, the last time that you were on, one of the things that we really focused on was that you were published by Entrepreneur Press, which was a big deal. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that once again. And I'm guessing that some of that, the weight of having such a big publisher has also helped with the marketing of your book in some ways. So talk to us a little bit about the difference between publishing for someone like Entrepreneur versus, I don't know, say self-publishing or going with a small house. How do you think that moves you forward in some ways?
You know, there's pros and cons for sure. For me, I am an incredibly data-driven person. I like to make business decisions based on data. It doesn't mean my heart doesn't go into it too, because there's data out there that I could be making a lot more money doing something in my business, but I'm choosing not to do that because my heart says, no, you're not happy doing it. You know what I mean? So I'm not completely a robot, but I freaking love my numbers. I mean, data is sexy, at least in this girl's world. So, you know, it's important for me to have that. And when you're not self-publishing, you don't have control over your data and you don't have immediate access to your data. So let's say you run one campaign one week and another one the next week, you're not going to be able to see the delta in sales because you don't get weekly sales reports. You don't get daily sales reports. And that's really hard for someone who puts their advertising dollars behind data. So I have yet to enter in that arena yet. The other thing that's been really different, again, beneficial. Listen, I got all these articles, I got all these videos, they got a massive reach, but it wasn't in your face book marketing. It was more incipient, like, hey, these people are featured in this book, and nowhere in the article does it say, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. There's no real call to action. Mm-hmm. You know, there's drop-ins like, hey, if you want 12 hours of brilliant minds being interviewed, buy the book and click here. But it's a link. It's not this big shiny ad. It's not this big picture. It's not anything like that, because Entrepreneur also has to be respectful to their readers. They're not coming just to the site to get advertisements all the time. So there was a fine balance, because for me, I am typically more in your face, and I don't think in the obnoxious way, but in the, hey, I'm doing this, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or whatever kind of way. And I've been able to do that in my own channels to some extent, but still not to the extent that I would have if I had self-published. Mm-hmm. So whenever you're sponsored by or published through a major publisher, you also have to realize that their brand is reflected in what you do, and you have that at stake. So while it's a huge benefit, and, you know, I love them, I'm so honored to have had the opportunity to publish through them, doing a self-published book would have been very different. And I would be more motivated, for example, to put my own advertising dollars on Facebook ad campaigns or whatever on the front end of it, because I would at least get to understand what data is or isn't driving sales. But without that, it's one of those things for me.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of uncertainty, I think you're saying.
Yeah, it is. You have a team behind you, which is miraculous, right? You have this team, you have an agreement. At least I had marketing agreements lined out in my contract. That's one thing I did. I don't know how many other authors spend as much time as I did on the marketing part of the contract. And it's one thing that my press had unique to them is they have a whole media empire behind them. Not all publishers do. And I wanted to take advantage of that. So I spent 6 weeks negotiating the marketing part of it. And the wait was worth it to me because I know the long term, that's what I needed. But in terms of, what I would do differently if I were self-publishing, I mean, number one, you're keeping all of the profit. Number two, again, you have the data. So my marketing would have been a little different. It would have been more incentive-based marketing instead of content-based marketing. And the difference between the two, what I did with Entrepreneur Press was more content-based marketing. I produced a ton of what I feel and they felt it was high-value content that got traffic from their readers, and that's great. But again, it wasn't in your face, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. Whereas I would have done with my community, and I still will, I have something launching in a couple of months that will have incentivized bulk sell buys and stuff like that. But it's, hey, if you buy X number of books, you also get this, and then you also get this. And when you keep 100% of the money, you're much more motivated as an entrepreneur to do that type of thing. And for me, I'm much more motivated by data. So I'm talking with them now. I'm like, guys, how can we get a reporting structure so that I can see what is and isn't working? Because until I can do that, I don't want to put massive amounts of money unless I'm also getting a guarantee on the back end of it, just from a business perspective.
Great. So for people who are listening, Jill, who aren't as savvy in looking at data and making it work for them for marketing, can you talk a little bit about maybe the very basics? Like, where can they start to market their own book and kind of look at data and make that data work for them?
Yeah, the first thing to know is any number that you see easily displayed on Facebook, on Twitter, or whatever, almost any of those are just vanity numbers. They're all ego numbers, and they mean very, 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 can I say very one more time, little. And it's, for example, I work on a lot of video content with clients, or strategy, should I say, with companies, and helping them do video marketing and education campaigns. And they're like, well, the videos we post on Facebook get so many more views than the videos on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, of course they do. Because in Facebook world, a video view counts after 3 seconds. 3 seconds. In YouTube world, it's 30 seconds. So you tell me which video is going to have more views. And it's an ego number, because unless you're actually getting a click from that video somewhere, it does very little for you. So it's really first understanding what numbers actually matter and what numbers are ego numbers. And that's what I call them. And I own it. Don't get me wrong. It feels damn good to post a video and the next day have a couple thousand or more views on it. You're like, yeah, I'm awesome. But then I reality check myself. All right, Jill, that means 2,000 people watched at least 3 seconds of a video. Go you, It probably means they were just scratching their butt for a second while they were holding the phone on my page. I don't know what it was. But, I produce some good content, and I can see then, if you're doing that, you can see how many people actually stay on throughout your video. And that's when you start looking at retention numbers. It's really, what does your post derive in terms of action? So a better thing, if you're doing a Facebook video, for example, a better gauge of interaction is not even just the likes, but the actual comments, right? And the best thing is if someone's commenting in and sharing a link on your behalf, or giving you a proactive testimonial on your behalf. So in starting at that, it's how in your video and how in your presentations, your live streams, what have you, do you actually trigger your community to want to engage in conversation and want to comment in on it? And then those are metrics where you can actually start to look at, okay, so I've posted 5 different videos. This one had 50 comments in it. This one had 100, and this one had 12, and then really understanding what type of content your audience responds to first. So that's number one, is really getting a hold of what metrics actually matter, especially when it comes to social media, and then which things get people most engaged. From the engagement, then you can lead to more action. Because if someone's not engaged in the first place, they're never going to take an action because they're not in the right frame of mind to do so. So that's how you kind of start drilling it down. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of companies out there. I was talking to one not too long ago about being, oh, we may want to approach you. Let's talk about being an ambassador. Oh, we looked at your Twitter following, and our lowest ambassador has 20,000 Twitter followers, and you are around 5,000. Like, yeah, Twitter is the fastest declining usage of social media. It is the least in size of the ROI. There's so many, but that's what they're looking at. They're looking at an ego number that actually really doesn't draw action. So for everyone out there, I know social media is huge, and there may be some experts that agree with me and disagree with me on this, but it's really finding out the types of content that your audience responds to. And then bigger than that is what type of content is your audience sharing. So there's the view, there's the like, there's the comment, and then there's a magical share. If you can get to that fourth one, that share, you've really gotten something good. Those are the numbers I look at. And I look at my videos and I'm like, damn, I thought this was a good video and it got lots of comments, but nobody shared it. And then I look at something, I'm thinking, this wasn't really all that great, but like 12 people share it. Like, what? What's going on? But you have to figure that out for your audience. And that's the type of data, like on the surface, you can do. If you really want to dive down into it, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they all have deep diving analytic tools that you can look at. And then that's something, if you do want to do social media advertising, Facebook tends to be the best right now. That's a trend. I've had some success on LinkedIn too, to be honest. It depends on where your market is. Mine is more business, so that would make sense for me. But with Facebook ads, you can target people so ridiculously small. And if that's a rabbit hole we want to go down, I can talk about it. But if not, that's fine too. I'll leave it to you ladies.
Yeah, I think that these are really great tips, and you're certainly an expert in this area. And I know, we're writing podcasts, but at the end of the day, if we're writing something, we're putting it out into the world and no one's buying it, well, we've got a problem, right? Because our message is lost. And so these skills that you have, Jill, are really important to writers and authors who tend, in general, to have a hard time putting on that business hat because they're creative types and they don't like to do the selling. So I think, yeah, if you can give us some tips on how authors might create a Facebook ad to sell their book, that would be really helpful.
Sure. So let me give you, to that exact point, here is a tweetable quote. So everyone out there who got any value from this, humor us and tweet this quote. Okay, ready? Everyone's ready to write this down, to type it, right? I'm just giving everyone listening a chance. Writing without marketing is journaling. Period. Because if you don't market your writing and you don't know how, no one else is ever going to read it. And it essentially is then just a journal. And I'm not saying journaling is bad. And I'm not saying writing for journaling's sake is bad at all. In fact, I do it. But if your goal is to get your message out there, you have to understand marketing and either do it yourself or hire someone that does. Or do a hybrid, listen to resources like this, start to learn it, and then pick up little tips along the way. In reality, in the book marketing world, if you're writing something with dreams of becoming the next New York Times bestseller, for about $200,000, you can buy your way on the list. And if you want a publishing firm that's going to do anything worth a lick to even get you on a list, you're looking at least 30 to 40 grand of investment just in a PR firm right there. And that's a reality. That's the absolute reality of it. And with this last book, I actually contacted a couple people I know who've made the New York Times bestseller list on their own accord, who have massive followings, who I'm fortunate enough to be able to contact, and they actually respond, which still baffles me. But it's, they're like, and one of them said, one sentence email, unless you're willing to put down 30 to 40 grand, don't even ask anyone else's question. And it was the best advice I got. So umbrella overview there. You don't have to be a New York Times bestseller to write a message that is important and that is used by people. And you don't have to be an Amazon bestseller. You don't have to do any of that crap, to be quite honest. What you need is effective marketing to reach the people who need your message. So if you want to use Facebook advertising as a route to do it, the best way to start thinking about it is to think in terms of a funnel. Let me set the cocktail down real quick so I can visually demonstrate this. So funnel, right? The funnel goes like this. And the idea with a funnel is at the top of the funnel somewhere, there is a lead magnet, this magnet that just sucks and attracts all these people. And it's like, oh, we got all these people in and they're in this funnel. And they're swirling around and they're reading our stuff and looking at it. And maybe we start with 100 people up here. And maybe your funnel lends it so that only one of those 100 actually buys from you in the end. That's okay. The goal is to identify and create that funnel so that maybe it's 100 come in and 10 purchase at the end, for example. If you could get that ratio, that's good, right? So what can you demonstrate about yourself, about the book? When I think of things I might have done differently now, if I knew what I knew now, I think I would have started a lead gen funnel about a year before. As soon as I started writing the book, as soon as it was under contract, I would have started a specific funnel just for this, just so I could have started to get the leads in that would be interested in this book eventually. And not to hammer them with email, but like once a month check in and say, hey, this book progress is here, or hey, it's there, and just share that journey. That's what I would have done from the beginning, because then as the journey goes along, you've created all this content. So then no matter when someone comes in the funnel, those messages can drip out in sequential order, which is brilliant. And that's technology. I use a combination of ClickFunnels. That's the software I use to execute a lot of my stuff. So the first thing is thinking of this lead magnet. So what is something that people would give their email address for? And let's be honest, we don't give our email address up as easily as we used to. It will take a pretty good incentive, or in my case, like half a bottle of wine, and then, you can have my email address. That's just fine. Alcohol is my theme of the night clearly here, so we're going to run with it. But it's important to know that people just don't give that. So what can you do and for the people who will need your message? So let's say you're writing a fiction book. Okay, this is not a genre that I write, and this is not a genre that I am an expert at marketing at, but this is something I've thought of creatively. If I am writing a fiction book and I want my writing style to be out there, I'm going to think of who is most likely going to read this book. So if it's, like a Janet Evanovich book, like I love her books. I call them bubblegum for the brain. I read them at the beach, or I read them on a plane or on the subway, just light thinking when if someone interrupts me, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to lose this existential train of thought that I have going on, right? So who's going to read the books? Well, there's demographic data there. So look at other authors who have similar writing styles to you, and then find the demographics on who buys their books. So that's a first place to start in terms of looking at data. You find out that information and then write like a mini novella, write a short story, write something that introduces people to the characters, offer it for free. You can do this through Kindle. You can do it through a lot of different sites. I know authors, I was looking at writing erotic fiction at one point in time, and I still play in it because it's just a complete departure from everything I do in my life. So I try to put myself in very uncomfortable situations from time to time. This was one of them. And I thought, okay, if I wanted to do this, how would I do it? And the biggest thing is drop out little mini stories for free on Kindle until you get a massive following. When you have about 1,000 or so downloads, maybe up it to 99 cents, and they get a bunch of 3 stories, and then you get the full books going and you grow from there. People have literally made hundreds of thousands of dollars that way, but it starts small. And I read up about all this. So if you're going to do Facebook ads, you find the demographics of your writers, you offer free stories. If you know people want to be entertained, it's summer season coming up, the beach is coming up, get a free 5 mini short story series introducing this fabulous new female vixen character that does X, Y, and Z, so you can read on your Kindle or on your phone on the beach. Just give your email here and we'll send you the files. Like, great. And if people like you and like your characters, they're going to keep downloading stuff. So you have to tease them. You have to give them that incentive to get them in there. And then when the book comes out, you have 100 people or whatever in the funnel who have liked the character. And then your messaging becomes about the character and not about you as the author, which is brilliant. And that's huge. Same thing in the nonfiction world. The message and the content becomes about what's helping people, how people have used it, not about what you wrote.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, Jill, that was brilliant. I mean, I would just stop right there. Like, we're done.
Well, there's that.
Thank you so much. I saw Andy was taking notes, so I know for sure we're going to have a really great cheat sheet.
Funnel.
And yes, about a funnel. Funnels today.
Yay!
So for all of the fantastic advice that we got and you got from Jill today, check out the link in our show notes at www.writing-gym.com/marketing and go out and buy Jill's book today. You can also connect with her via Twitter. She's @DynamicJill. And you can get all of these top tips for marketing your own book when you publish it. at www.writing-gym.com/marketing. And thank you so much, Annalisa, for more of your great writing advice. Annalisa is the resident writing coach in the Writing Gym. She helps writers break free from not good enough so that they can write freely to meet and exceed their publishing goals. Writers who are serious about improving their craft in publishing can work one-on-one with her in the Writing Gym. We are currently selecting applications at www.writing-gym.com. And bonus, you know how you always say, I love to write, but I just can't find the time. What would it be like to have a gentle guide, someone to check in with you on how you're doing on your weekly writing goals? Well, you can. You even have a personal trainer, which is me. You can get the accountability you need to make time for writing in the Writing Gym. If you're serious about pumping your writing into publishing shape, apply now. Go to writing-gym.com and don't forget the dash. Thank you all so much for joining us to pump up your writing here on the Writing Gym podcast. Happy writing.
This has been the Writing Gym Podcast with Andy Brixey and Annalisa Parent. To join the Writing Gym, visit www.writing-gym.com.